County Board of County Commissioners Tourism Development Council to order. Gentlemen, Keith, we brought the meeting to order. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for attending our meeting today. And we will start with welcome and introductions. We'll just start over there on the end with Mayor Medina. You want to introduce?
So, needless to say, most of you already know, I'm Ron Medina, mayor of the greatest city on the face of the earth.
Oh, we know it's Palm Bay now. Okay. I'm Julie Braga, General Manager of the Residence in Melbourne, Florida.
Giles Malone with Space Coast David. Peter Cranis with the Tourism Office.
Andrea Young, West Melbourne Deputy Mayor.
Keith Winston, East Coast Zoological Society of Florida, known as Brevard Zoo.
Larry Jarnes, Northborough Builders.
Charity Stewart, TDO.
Justin Karen, County Attorney's Office.
Thank you. We'll go to staff with Candace.
Bonnie King, 321 Liftoff Podcast.
Suzette Mainers, District 1 Commission Office.
I'm Melissa Mack with the Hampton, Home 2, and Homewood and Cape Canaveral.
Dave Berman in Florida today.
Thank you. Thank you. Welcome to all. We have some people online. Okay, our chair, Tom Hermanson, you're there? Tom?
Tom Hermanson signing in from
Thank you, Tom.
the second best country in the world, Norway.
Thank you. And we have two others. We have Michelle.
Michelle Martindale.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Mike?
Christy Galzerano, Hilton Garden.
I'm sorry, we didn't catch that.
Christy Galzerano, Hilton Garden Inn.
Thank you, Christy. And Mike, are you out there?
Yes, Mike McGarry with Brevard County Natural Resources.
Thank you. All right, can we get a vote? Can I get a motion and a second to allow Christy and Tom to vote via Zoom?
I move.
I'll second that.
Motion by Mayor Medina, second by Larry Jarnes. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries. Thank you. All right, we'll move on to an action item, approval of the agenda. Can I get a motion and a second to approve the agendas for May 25th and July 6th?
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Motion by Jarnes, second by Braga. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries. Next item, Commissioner, Ms. Pritchett, you have a new appointee? Oh, I'm sorry. I need to go through any disclosure of conflicts. I missed right over that. Are there any board members that have any conflicts with any of the items? Please say so now. No conflicts. And we also need an approval of the agenda. Can I get a motion in a second?
Second.
Motion by Winston, second by Jarnes. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you.
Discussion.
Yes.
Unfortunately, I had a cultural committee member that had to resign, and it only happened yesterday. I did find an alternate for the cultural committee, and I'd like to be able to add that approval to the agenda.
We have it. It's an item, yes.
We added it.
Yes, it has been added, so we'll be attending to that in just a moment. Any other comments?
Thank you.
All right, those in favor of approving the agenda? Aye. Those
Aye.
opposed? Thank you. All right, Commissioner Pritchett, next. You have a new person?
I'd like to make a motion to appoint Mr. Jerry McGrill.
Thank you. Can we get a motion? Second by Hermanson, was that Hermanson? Medina. All right, thank you very much. So we have a motion and we have a second. All those in favor of appointing Jerry McGreal?
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you. All right, next one, Tom Hermanson. This is your appointee. Would you like to introduce him, please?
Yes, I'd like to introduce David Schiller, who's the director of the Brevard Symphony Orchestra that on short notice volunteered to step in to serve on the cultural committee.
Thank you. Can we get a second with motion?
Second.
Thank you. Motion by Hermanson, second by Winston. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you. Motion carries. All right, next item is Director's Report.
Excuse me,
STR
sorry, Madam Vice Chairman, we have a item to go over on C, the minutes from May 25th and July 6th. I just had a comment there. I think we missed that one, didn't we? I think,
No, we got it.
did you? Okay, I apologize. I need to digress a little
Okay.
bit. On page 13 of the minutes from that meeting in May, where it says Malone approved to approve an alternate proposal under which Driftwood would receive $500,000 a year for 7 years for marketing its project, which would be a total of $3.5 million. And the Office of Tourism staff would oversee that marketing. Mayor Medina seconded the motion, and then it moved, and it went down to Malone moved to table the motion. I think, if I'm not mistaken, Commissioner Pritchard added in there that we should suggest tabling that motion at that time. So I'd just like to see if we could get that in the minutes.
All right, thank you. Steph, we have that added?
I think there's a little bit of, maybe you could go back and see.
I will.
But I think there's a little bit of gap there. Yeah, that's what it says here in the minutes. So I'd just like to straighten that out if we can. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I think, and for the record, I think I withdrew my second during that discussion, Giles.
Right.
Okay, we'll go back through and we'll bring it back at the next meeting for a relook.
Great.
Would you like me to withdraw my second on the approval of the minutes? Because I didn't, I mean, we have a question. so-
Yeah, I think the way
We
to
can't
do
approve
that
it.
is to withdraw the motion and rescind the vote, and then just vote for July 6th, since if everything was okay on July 6th, we could go ahead and get those approved, but then we'll bring May 25th back in August.
All right, can I get a motion to rescind the approval for May 6th and to approve only May 25th?
So moved.
So moved by,
It's the
Second.
other way around.
It doesn't,
It's
Oh,
the
no.
other way around. We're
No.
approving May 6th, but not May 25th. Excuse me,
No.
May 25th, I'm sorry, but not July 6th.
right.
no, I think it's
The other way around.
Other way around.
It is the other way
The
around.
other way around.
Was
We
I
have
the
2 Mays in
second?
there, I'm sorry.
We're not approving the minutes from May, and we're approving
Yes.
July.
Approving July. I thought that's what I said. Yes.
Who seconded it? Jarnes or?
See. I have Jarnes made the motion.
And I seconded. Okay, so I'll withdraw my second on the approval of the minutes for, is it May 20?
July 6th.
July 6th.
No, it wasn't July.
No.
It's May
No.
25th.
May 25th.
Sorry, my bad.
I guess that I have to withdraw my motion to approve the minutes for May 26th as well.
Okay, then we'll make the corrections.
I
and
think
we
we got that clear as mud.
Are we good?
All those in favor? Signify
Aye.
by saying aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. We're going to approve May 25th, and we're going to,
No, we're not.
we're
July
going to
6th
approve
is.
July 6th, and we're going to redo
May.
May.
the other one.
There we go.
Okay, now
That's the
let's
hardest
move
thing we have
on.
to do today.
That was the most confusing thing.
Yeah, that's the hardest thing we have to do today.
That was easy. All right, STR report.
Okay, so just a couple of quick things, and then I'm going to get into the budget stuff, because that's going to take a little bit to go through that. But I did have a couple of things I wanted to mention. Those of you that saw the story on May tourism tax collections were, again, a record for the month of May, so that was the 14th straight month of a record month for that given month. And June is looking like it's going to top 2 million, which that'll be a record for June. So we'll get those numbers in about 8 or 10 days, should have those. So I'll send that out to everybody. I also wanted to point out in your packet on page 29, we got our STR for the month of June, and we were able to put our room night demand report together. And it showed for both for the month, but more importantly, from year to date, we're tracking over 19% growth in room night demand through June. and that actually puts us ahead of every other of our competitive destination set that we have in STR. The closest was Jacksonville at 14.4, and the rest of them were below 10, and Daytona's flat. So, you know, we're doing very well right now, and you know, that's just a good news for everyone. It's certainly important for the destination and the hotels, but for all the businesses here that work in the tourism world. I'm going to talk next about our budget. So this is.
Can I make one comment?
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
I do think it's interesting, and I do think we're seeing a softening in the market.
Hey, Keith, can you speak in the mic?
Oh, sorry. I do think we're seeing potentially a softening in the market across Florida. When you look at room night demand, in most of the other markets, it was down from last year.
Right.
And I do think that's significant. That's what I'm hearing from other zoos across the state, that it was actually in June, we're seeing fall off. We're still showing the positive growth, but that is not the trend I'm hearing. So I just think it's worth noting. Even though for the year they're up, for June, they're almost all down, with the exception of us and Jacksonville.
And Keith, we're seeing that in the south part of the market as well, not anywhere forecasting in August like we had last year.
Yeah.
So that's something that we need to keep an eye on as we have a softening in the market, and there's nothing out there saying that that's going to change. We just don't have that leisure pent-up demand that we had last year.
I'm seeing it too, so
Yeah.
that's why I was just curious. We sort of dodged the bullet on the county level, but I think that softening the market is going to be a reality for the next couple of months.
Yes.
We might dodge it, but not the state of Florida, so.
So you guys think that we'll go from record demands to
Still good demand, but
Yeah.
just falling off from last year, which was such an
It's not going to be
exceptional year.
growth over last year.
Yeah.
It's not what we're seeing in our market.
so we've peaked?
Yes, we might.
Our 4 hotels in Cocoa Beach
What's
are
that?
gonna probably finish July about 5% down on last year, average between 4 hotels.
Yeah, July's good, but we're looking at August and September as potential softening, Tom, just kind of, at least in the south part of the market.
Yeah, from the attractions point of view, we're seeing the pent-up demand last year versus the heat this year. It's
Yeah.
those two factors we're seeing. I don't know if we're seeing actual gas prices and inflation impacts as much as it was fantastic last year. And now there's a little break on it with the heat.
Yeah.
So.
All right.
Okay, good. Starting in page 49 in your packet, and then also we're sharing the screen up here if you want to look at the screen, up to you how you want to look at this. But just, you know, as we're talking about future and looking ahead, you know, our budget this year, we had increased our budget at the mid-year to 17.5. Everyone, I think, knows that we're talking about something well north of 20 million in total collections for this year. But in anticipation of what we're hearing a little bit around the room, but I've also heard from a lot of other sources, you know, there may be a little bit of a softening in the market going forward. So I had put in, originally I put in an $18 million projection for TDT next year, and then when I got May in, I upped that to 19 million. I think we're going to hold at 19 million. That's what we're going to be presenting to the board next month. In September, actually our budget goes to the board in September with all the other county budgets. But I wanted to review with this body each fund and all of the different budgets that we oversee and what we're projecting those to be next year. The breakdown here, you can just see a little bit of how we break out each of the funds. As you recall, promotions and advertising gets 25% of the first 2 pennies and 100% of the 5th penny, and then it also gets a part of the 4th penny after we pay what we need to pay in capital, or hold what we need to hold for capital maintenance at the stadium. So that's kind of the breakdown there. And then, and then our administration budget, we're projecting 1.729 million will be in revenue. So, for those of you that might be new to seeing our budget, the administration budget is basically set based on what our costs are, what our overhead costs are. So that's everything from salaries and benefits, which you see here, compensation and benefits, operating and capital expenses, and then the cost allocation that's given to us by the county for all of their services that they provide to us, including our IT expenses and things like that. So you can see obviously the biggest growth is in compensation and benefits. There's two driving factors behind that, actually three driving factors behind that. One is we added a position, so we split the operations coordinator position and the sports position into two different positions. So we have an operations person that'll be full-time and a sports person that'll be full-time. So that was an additional position. And then the county is putting in a 5.38% increase for all positions across the board. So that's for the entire county. So we had to account for that in ours, obviously. And then there is also going to be an increase in medical insurance costs, so we had to build that in. So that's why it's going from just under 1.2 to 1.3. And then operating-wise, that includes things like our rent and any equipment that we need, computers, furniture, any of those types of things. So not a huge increase there, but a little bump up. And then the cost allocation actually dropped a touch from the county, which was nice. So that's how we got to the 1.729. I'm going to skip 1441 for now. I'm going to save that for the end. That's the promotions budget. So we're going to go into 1442, which is our beach improvement. So based on a $19 million collection, if you recall, beach is 35% of the first 2 pennies and 65% of the third cent. So that would yield $4.75 million. And then you see, as you go down, you see balance forward. The balance forward includes a lot of different elements, including a major project that we're budgeted for in the mid-reach, which is just south of the Space Force base down to the southern part of Indian Harbor Beach, Indy Atlantic, right around there. That's about a $7 million project that's built into that. And then if you look down at the bottom half of the page, you see that $7 million that I just mentioned is under contracted services. And then also in there are a lot of things like turtle monitoring and ongoing engineering that needs to be done on past projects. So that's why it's $8 million. Then there's IRL grant program, that's by ordinance, that's $1 million. And then we pay for the Natural Resources Department. And then we'll have a little bit of funds. We're mostly spent through everything that we had in this budget for Laurie Wilson Park, but there's a little bit left over, so we'll have a little bit going into next year, but that is more for maintenance, not for any of the capital projects that we have out there. And then we put $10 million in reserves. That was a recommendation that came from the Beach Committee, and we were able to do that with some funds that we had gotten from past FEMA collections that we had been waiting for that came in this past year. So we were able to put another $2 million into the reserves for future, which obviously if we were to have a bad storm or weather event, we could use that up pretty quickly. So that's important to keep that maintained.
Excuse me,
Peter, I
Peter,
have
quick
one
question.
question.
Sorry, Larry.
Yes, sir.
No, go ahead.
Where's the amount reflected from the federal government, the receivable they owe us? Is that already reflected in here?
It's already built in there, yes, sir.
Which line item's
And
that?
we had been waiting, it's been 3 years since Irma, and we got, I believe it was just under 4 million. So 2 million of that we put into the reserves, and then the rest is gone into the projects that we have.
And typically that's 9 to 1, if I remember correct?
When you add, well, FEMA money is a little different, but yes, when you add like FEMA money and you add all the money we get from the Army Corps of Engineers and then all the money that we get matched from the state, if you were to look over like the last 10 or 15 years, it's a 9-to-1 ROI on that, you know, or 9-to-1 match basically from the feds and the state.
So essentially, you know, 4.75 million coming from next year's TDT, and the rest of that coming from the match that's been historic, sort of payments from the match and balance forward. But
Correct.
it's only taking 4.7 of the new income.
New money, right.
New money.
Yeah.
So that's always important to show how much return we get. Yep.
Yep. Yes, sir.
I just had a question on that reserves, that the 10 million. Where does that sit? Is that in a 1% interest-bearing account that's the 104,000?
All of our funds are managed by the county finance department, and they're all eligible to receive different kinds of, you know, they're all very conservative investments, but yeah, we get a interest. So you can see the interest there's the 104,000. That's interest from all of our different, you know, money that's sitting in that fund.
So those reserves are only deployed when there's a hurricane or something like that? So
Correct.
they were essentially sitting for years?
It wasn't always 10, but yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm just wondering, when it gets that high, if it's that kind of money, does it make sense to do something with it that it could actually earn more than $100,000 in interest? So it could be that's a significant amount of money. to
That's
just
a
be
great
sitting.
question. We're not allowed to touch those funds, so that is managed by the county's finance department. So I can look into what options there are, but that is typically dictated by them, which they're overseen by the clerk. That's the clerk of the county courts department.
Okay.
Is the finance department, and they have a person that manages all of the county money and all of the funds, which we're just part of, you know, that big whole budget. So, but it's a good question. We can certainly ask them that.
Just once you start to get to those kind of numbers, it seems like you would take a look at that and maybe do something a little bit more proactive with it.
Yeah.
Bitcoin's looking cheap.
I'm sorry, was there a comment online?
I said Bitcoin's looking cheap. That was a joke.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Not.
Okay, going to, next fund is 1443, so this is the capital facility. So as you recall, capital is 35% of the first two pennies. 19 million would yield 2.66 million. We have, you know, obviously funds in balance forward. Every project that we have is accounted for in the balance forward. So if we had past projects that receive funds, but they haven't spent it down completely, then that's in this. We had, and we just met with the capital committee not too long ago to share with them sort of a 10-year look forward. But we have about 2 million available for projects for this fiscal coming up for the next grant cycle, and they're working on reviewing 2 grants right now. And then the 4.47 million is for all of the existing projects that have been sort of previously approved, just waiting to, you know, spend those funds. So Palm Bay Campground still has a lot of work to do. The Merritt Island Wildlife Visitor Center, also in there is money for the Cocoa Village Playhouse, the Titusville, the Police Hall of Fame got some funds the year before, so they haven't spent those yet. So they're starting to, but we, you know, still have some funds we're holding for them. And then the Veterans Memorial Park, the amphitheater project, we just saw at the last committee meeting, they presented some of their renderings that they're working on, so they haven't started really getting into the big spending yet from the construction side, but that's all money that's held for those. And then we do have some debt service, and then we have a reserve of 2 million in that fund. Visitor information budget, this is 10% of the third penny, so it comes out to be a couple of percent of the total. The revenue will yield $380,000 this coming year, and that will be spent on a couple of different things. We have a new visitor center, so we've completed the build-out of that, and we'll be opening that in August. We are hiring some new people, so compensation and benefits come out of this budget. And then also, this is the same fund where the Chamber of Commerce's, the 4 chambers in the county can apply for grants, typically to operate their visitor centers and use it to try to generate new business. So all of that comes out of this fund. So that's the visitor information. On the cultural support is all of the different programming that we do grants for, but it's also the Brevard Cultural Alliance comes out of here. So it's 10% of the first 2 pennies. That will yield $760,000 this coming year. And we do have a pretty good sized balance forward. We didn't spend it all down this past year. Next year, you guys have already approved this. This still has to go to the Board of County Commissioners, but the Cultural Alliance, we approved a multi-year, or this body approved a multi-year contract with them. So next year, that contract is $220,500. We're still in the middle of, we just got all our grant applications, and the committee's reviewing those grants. So that's the $530,000 to cover that. And then the major event grant program that program for next year has not opened yet, but that will come before this committee when the time comes. So that is how that fund gets spent. The zoo, this is a straight, basically, as the funds come in to the county finance department, they're allocated to this fund, and then we fill out the paperwork to release it every month, so it's a straight pass-through. We never see these funds. They go right to the zoo. So this next year, that's 25% of the third penny. That's $950,000 next year, so that's a nice bump. Hopefully Keith is happy with that. And you see the zoo allocation there at the bottom after expenses are taken out, $788,975 is what they'll get. So that's about $160,000, $167,000 increase. The next one, this is the stadium maintenance fund I mentioned. So this is all of the fourth penny goes here, but all we have to hold by ordinance or requirement of ordinance is about $350 of it. If you remember in the past, it was a little bit higher because we were also by contract required to contribute $250,000 to a capital fund for future. That commitment ended this past year. So this coming year, we do not have to put the $250 in. Of course, USSSA still does. They still will put the $250 in from their side. They have 5 more years in the contract to do that. So then when you carry it down, you can see we're holding about $358 net for stadium maintenance. It's got to be capital maintenance projects. And then the next one, 1450, is the fund I was alluding to earlier, where 250 from UTRIP goes in there, and that is just under 2.3 million for next year. So that fund will keep building up for the next 4 years after next year, and then we'll have to see what funds we need to allocate between now and then and beyond for anything that major that needs to be done in the stadium. These are for major capital improvements.
How do you distinguish between the capital improvements and the maintenance?
So capital maintenance might be smaller projects, like for instance, to maintain the turf. It requires a very heavy maintenance schedule every month. And so that comes from the capital maintenance budget. But a capital improvement might be like if we needed a new roof, or we needed to completely redo an entire field with turf, that would be a more major capital project. And then the next, last but certainly not least, this will lead us into our next conversation, so I'd put this one last. This is 1441, so this is promotions and advertising. Again, as you recall, what I had mentioned, all the different allocations that this fund gets, it would be 5.7 million next year. The transfer from the fourth penny would be 3.15. And then we have the balance forward there, funds that were unallocated or unspent from this year, totaling a revenue of 9.779, or just call it 9.78 million. And then on the expense side, about 8.7 million of that gets spent on promotional activities. We will go through that in detail when we get to the marketing plan next. But then this also covers our website, hosting and maintenance, our media relations program, our sports marketing, travel expenses here. You can see we are going to a few more shows next year, this coming year, as shows have begun to reopen and travel is reopened, so we've got a few more expenses there. Memberships, most of that membership increases due to Visit Florida had a big membership increase. If those of you that track that, Visit Florida got their multi-year funding this past year from the state, and so as they were able to get their multi-year funding, they've now turned around and raised their membership rates. So that's how we got there. Okay. So, Madam Chair, that is the conclusion of the, one last one was the disaster fund, the marketing disaster fund. So this is the fund that we put in for any, storm events, things like that. If we needed to recover and do a marketing campaign, these are funds that we can access for that. So that we had added 100,000 last year. We can look at our mid-year when we get our balance forward from this past year. We can look at adding some more funds to this if the committee makes that recommendation. So that is that, and so I will need a vote for this.
Yes. All right, that was a very nice presentation. All right, can we get a motion and a second to accept the budget presentation? Yes, Mr.
Just want to confirm, the zoo is part of the budget package, so do I have a conflict of interest there voting, even though it's statutory? And set by statute?
What have you done in the past?
This is his first year on the.
Yes.
Oh, is it? I would think that would be a conflict. 'Cause
Okay.
you'd be giving money to the zoo.
Yeah, even though, so I'm going to recuse myself from the vote.
All right, so with the exception of Keith, can we get a motion and a second to accept the budget?
I'll make a motion to accept the budget.
Motion by Jarnes,
I'll second.
second by Medina. Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. All right.
Let the record show that Keith abstained from that vote.
All right, we'll move on to committee reports.
Okay, for the marketing committee, I just want to tee up a little bit the process that staff and the marketing committee went through to get to this point. Essentially, there were a number of questions that influence, the future market for tourism that the committee was charged with discussing, investigating, sharing thoughts with staff. Staff also spent extensive time combing through data over the past few years. I think we worked with them to reduce the numbers of slides and just distill down to its essence. And I say that today in case any of you have questions. There are mounds of data to look at trends in tourism in Brevard County, but we wanted to simplify it and set that up. And so the marketing plan you're going to see is based on both input from the committee on our perception of important trends in tourism, as well as a pretty extensive look at what the data is telling us about those trends. I capture that accurately. And then we saw a version of this and voted for it earlier this month. So a lot of time and work has gone into it. If you had a caffeinated beverage, I would say drink it now, because there's going to be a lot that you're going to have to digest over the next few minutes. So.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. I'll kick it off here. So first of all, in your little notebooks that we gave you, Just starting off here, we just did a quick recap of some of the highlights from the destination. You can see there a lot of activity has happened relative to marketing and rankings and awards that we've received, awards for our creative, awards for the marketing that we've done, awards for our public relations efforts. So we just thought we would recap that briefly to say it was a very good year looking backwards. We just went through the budget, so this was the $9.779 million, if you recall, we just covered the marketing disaster fund. Then the next section, starting on slide 8, are some trends that we just looked at, and we just tried to pull out sort of the high-level things. Behind each of these slides is a graph. I'm not going to go, unless you really, find something that you want to dig into a little bit more, we can, but I'm not going to cover a lot on the graphs. I'm really just going to talk more to the slides. So the first slide was really just talking about TDT and what's happened over the last couple of years. As you recall, we hit a high water mark in 19 of 16 million, and then COVID hit us, and the wind got taken out of our sails, and we got set back to 2015, 2016 levels at 13 million. But then we had right following that, again, another high water mark of 17 million in 2021. And then, of course, now we're expecting to be somewhere in excess of 21 million when we get through this fiscal. Interesting, what we saw from a TDT perspective, hotels fully recovered last year from a TDT perspective. So we're able to look at the categories of tourist development tax, and of course hotel motel is one line item, and then you have vacation rentals and condos. Those kind of fall into another bucket, but for the hotels TDT recovered completely, and then from January through May, which is the most current month we have, TDT is up 29% for the hotels. So you had 19 high water mark, obviously a bad year in 20, a bounce back in 21, and hotels were back where they had previously been, and now we're seeing through the first 5 months of the year 29% increase. The biggest growth in the TDT is vacation rentals. Rentals represent about a third of the total TDT collection, and they were up 60%, over 60% last year, and so far this year they're up 93%. So that's been the biggest growth rate that we've seen, and it's something that we'll talk a little bit more about when we get into a discussion about some inventory and where we're seeing growth there.
Peter, can I ask one quick question?
Yeah, sure, go ahead. Please stop me as we go.
On the independent vacation rentals, are you talking about like Airbnbs and that type of thing?
Airbnb, home and away, VRBO,
Yeah.
or just private citizens
So do
renting.
you think we are missing out or not getting some of the taxes on some of the private rentals that are out there? I mean, is that a possibility that
It's
people are renting
possible,
stuff
but I
on their
think
own,
the
it doesn't come
possibility is
through
a lot less than it used to be. And the reason I say that is because about 2 years ago, the county entered into a contract with Expedia Group, which is home and away and VRBO. And between Airbnb and Expedia Group, that's probably 95% of the market.
Gotcha.
So what we're maybe missing is those independent, smaller mom and pops that aren't, for whatever reason, they're not paying or we're not catching them. But, the tax collector does try to go after those if they're aware of them. And our own folks in the county will sometimes come across them when they're doing other kinds of evaluation of buildings and things like that. If they see one that looks like it's a rental, they try to make sure they get tax receipts. So
It's just important that if it's really a third of all the TDT dollars, it's a big number.
I think, and I would say, I think a part of that growth is most likely the fact that now Expedia Group is paying their TDT to the tax collector, and that's
great.
a huge element
Yeah.
that's, added to
It
it.
used to be a huge problem.
I would imagine it would be, yeah.
Yeah, I think Airbnb
But
changed
it
the
also
game.
wasn't a third of the.
I think Airbnb changed the game when they created their platform, the small independent, I'm just going to rent my place on my own, those don't occur as much. Most people are working through some kind of platform. Yeah.
Appreciate the
Yeah,
clarity.
no, thank you. Also, so just a little bit on lodging. And a caveat, in 2021, a reminder that port passenger traffic dropped 48%. From 19, so, we had a huge drop-off. Obviously, we did not get back to cruising until the latter part of the year, and never, of course, never got fully back until this year. So that was a big factor. And if you look at what happened in 20, of course, we saw a huge drop from COVID, and then we did not see a full recovery in all of the metrics that we look at, like occupancy, ADR, RevPAR. ADR did the best last year, but they were still 3.7% behind 2019 levels. And we did see Cocoa Beach and Cape Canaveral really saw a greater drop in occupancy and RevPAR than the rest of the county, and we believe that was really directly related to the lower passenger traffic that we were seeing at the port. But in this year, we saw a complete turnaround of that with cruising back, almost fully back. The first 5 months of this year, ADR has jumped 12.5% over 2019 levels, and RevPAR's increased over 9.3%. So, you could see that impact of cruising really hurt us, and now that it's back, it's really helped us. And then, as I mentioned, in all areas across the county, ADR and RevPAR have grown significantly for this year. So we're fully back, and think we're in a good place now that we've got cruising back to where it was. And then the other issue is, from an inventory perspective, we grew tremendously since 2019. Since the end of 19, we've grown 8% new hotel inventory, and Cape Canaveral grew 36%. So they had a lot of new hotels go up in that little area. This year, we're expecting about a 5% growth, and next year, 10%. So we're going to see another year next year, unless there's some major pullback in construction, we're going to see another huge growth in hotel inventory. Room night demand I talked about a little bit, before. If you look at 19, we rented 2.3 million hotel rooms in 19. That dropped by a significant number to 1.7, so 600,000 fewer rooms in the COVID year. But last year, we were right back up to 2.3 million, and then through May anyway, I didn't have the June numbers when this was created, but through May, it was up 11%. June, it's up over 19%. So really strong comeback in terms of that. And then, one of the issues that we've kind of been tracking on is what's going on in Cocoa Beach, and I just will share, if you look at some of the charts behind this slide, you'll see that Cocoa Beach did not come fully back the way the other areas did. However, we know that about 250 rooms were out of circulation at the International Palms Resort. Obviously, that's the property that's going to be demolished supposedly next year. So that's a huge number of rooms that was still being counted against occupancy. So it's difficult to try to fully recover when you've got that much inventory out of the inventory market. And then vacation rentals, we talked a little bit about. Inventory in the vacation rental market has increased 24% in 21, and then 31% in the first 5 months of this year. And when you look at demand, their demand is a little different. It's not room night demand. We just call it units rented. They increased 5.3% last year to over 856,000 rooms or units rented, which is basically, that's on top of the 2.3 million that we rented last year. And then this year, they're up 18.6%. So we're seeing just growth across the board, more inventory, more hotel rooms, more vacation rentals. So I think as we go into our marketing plan, the big question that we ask is how do we keep filling those rooms? How do we keep pace with the growth? And I think that's one of our biggest challenges as we move forward. So with that, I'm going to move to the next section unless there's any other questions on this part. Kind of pause for a minute because there was a lot of numbers. But if you're good.
Not nearly as many as there were originally.
Yes. Thank you. Thanks to Keith for helping me pare this down a little bit. The next section is consideration and strategy, and this is really where the committee gave us a lot of feedback. We had a list of questions that we started several meetings ago asking, what about these issues that we're seeing with RevPAR? What about these issues with room night demand? They gave us a lot of input and feedback, and I'm going to let Charity take it from here. But this gets into now the strategies that we're going to employ as a result of a lot of that feedback that we've gotten from the committee and from a lot of other people in the community.
All right, so the next two slides that are entitled Key Considerations and Strategies is my attempt to consolidate everything that we have talked about over the last 7-8 months with the marketing committee and other tourism partners in the things to keep in mind as we were working through our plans for next year and as we were thinking about what does the future look like. So those top lines are the 8 considerations, and then underneath that is just a note, like why was it important we were talking about that? So on that first slide, you'll see the first item is those source markets. Who and where are these people coming from? And how do we use our research to be able to really accurately identify what are those source markets, and how do we look at, are we reaching enough of them? Are we reaching more of them or less of them than we need to? And so the tools on ROI within each one of those markets is really important for us to utilize as we continue to really dial in on what are those source markets that we want to reach. The other thing, as we get into talking about what those markets are, those farther away markets we know are a little bit different of a visitor than those closer in markets, and how does that play in our mix of both messaging and visitor type. So then the next goes into, sorry guys. The next goes into the paid campaigns, which we're going to get into in detail here in a moment. But ultimately, this is how do we reach those people within those source markets and influence those overnight stays. It's great to talk to them, but what we really need is to see that they are making those hotel bookings, flight searches, things of that nature. The next is international outreach. We do know that as restrictions for international travel into the United States has been lifted, that there is a demand for it. Obviously, there are concerns for us to continue to watch about that demand, but we continue to work with TUI and the UK representative that we've just entered into or are entering into the contract with to represent us over there directly with those consumers, to let them know that we have those options to be able to support direct service right here into MLB. We're also keeping an eye on the Canadian market, as we hear that there will be opportunities for service providers directly, again, into MLB to bring those consumers to us. This is an opportunity for us to go back to the international market that we have not been able to do as much of in the last few years. And then the next item is on strategic partnerships. And again, we've got detailed slides associated with the budget numbers on each of these as we go further. But really maximizing the relationships with some of these large partners who have a built-in audience, like the airlines, possibly like the cruise lines, and how can we work with them to make our dollars go farther and really help fill those seats and those passengers right into our market. The next slide is the continuation of those conversations. Earned and owned media, these are all of the things that we do that allow us to tell our story. I only have so much budget, so many ad spaces I can buy, so many ad creatives I can create. So our website, our public relations, our social media, these are efforts that allow us to really be able to dive deeper into the story of the Space Coast. So we really wanted to highlight how important it is for us to continue to support those resources. What do we talk about while we're on there? What are they looking for while they're in those places? The next is the travel industry. So we have seen during COVID one really benefit, I guess, to us, if you will, is that the online education of travel advisors and the number of opportunities available to us to be able to sit here on the Space Coast and do training on our destination of the benefits of adding a Space Coast stop to a travel agent's customer's itinerary has really allowed us to reach more advisors than we, maybe could face-to-face. And now that we have face-to-face shows back, we're able to kind of layer those. So we're seeing an increase in training and education from the travel industry on learning more about our agents or our destination. Continuing to really utilize the research and the data that we have available to us to optimize our efforts. I think some of the questions that have been brought up already about the market conditions, the market softening, what's contributing to that, and how we might be able to respond to that. We are well positioned with our research tools in place to be able to keep an eye on that and make decisions with flexibility. This plan is designed to be able to respond. It is not set in stone. And then responsible growth. And this is, this is a topic that isn't answered in just a couple of conversations, but more as we're building these plans out, what does long-term planning for the destination look like? Who are the visitors that we really want to reach, who want to get involved with taking care of the communities that they're visiting, who can stay longer, maybe have a larger economic impact in the community? And so keeping those things in mind as we continue to message and market. So we've taken all of that and started to apply it into who the visitor is, what their behavior is. So the next few slides are really who are we talking to, right? Who's coming here? And this is a narrative, and I just want you to picture in your mind who these people are, okay? So the Space Coast visitor is family-oriented with an active lifestyle. They take frequent trips that allow them to reconnect with each other and make memories by enjoying new activities together. They look for destinations where they can comfortably relax from their busy lives, and that also offers unique experiences that they can all do and then talk about at the dinner table for years to come. They want to discover destinations that they perceive as a good value and that they can come back to year after year. Once they're here, they keep coming back. So does everybody have kind of an image in your mind of who that is? Hopefully that's who you're seeing in your hotels and in your attractions. But what I can't do is necessarily give that to the advertisers to buy our media against. So here's what that translates to for you into our core demographics. So again, we've looked at a lot of research and a lot of data to continue to tell us who is our target market, who is coming here, what are the commonalities so we can go find more of them, right? And we do know that the things that you see on this slide are, really represent a core of who's here. There are obviously some sub-markets that are listed on here, but active adults, 35 to 54 plus, a lot of our advertising and messaging is still very much geared towards the women in the household. The research does continue to show they are a primary decision maker when it comes to planning of travel. Looking at household incomes of a minimum of $100,000 or greater, but in some markets, we might be looking at subsegments also of higher affluent markets. They are families with children in the household. We see a lot of those, but we do also see households without children, and that's on both ends of the age scale, right? That's your early career adults, 25 to 34, but then also your active retirees whose kids are out of the house and they're ready to go have some fun. And then we have our markets listed out for you in a couple of ways. So we do know that Florida continues to be a heavy driver for us. And so we don't want to ignore those markets. The Miami, Fort Lauderdale, the West Palm, the Orlando, Tampa, St. Pete. Those are markets that continue to drive visitation into our destination. But we're also seeing that those Atlanta, Charlotte, those drive fly markets continuing to produce visitation here and overnight stays. But then also New York, DC, Philly, and Chicago. And then speaking of utilizing data, one of the markets that we continue to see growing in our destination is Boston, in the Boston area. So we have added them to the plan this year to see, how might we be able to start messaging to that visitor that is coming here, and, in increasing popularity. And then we've got our international markets listed as well. So this is a little bit more clear when I'm going out and looking to place ads, to reach people as a foundation. And then, our key destination motivators, people come for the beach. We know that. We have a beautiful beach. They do come for space. Rocket launches and visits to the Kennedy Space Center continue to be some of our top requested questions. When is the next launch is probably one of the things we hear the most. Cruising, we saw the impact of cruising here in the market, but also our nature. I think I've said this previously, but bioluminescence this year is a trending topic nationally, at least with the media. We've had millions of hits on some of the bioluminescence stories that have been done, including a great piece last week that National Geographic did, and they went so far to talk about the Indian River Lagoon. They covered the community response to, the taxation and, contributions. So that is an element that continues to really be a focus for our destination. We know they're looking for new experiences and unique attractions, things that they can't do at home, right? And that might look different from me to you, but those are some of the things that they're looking for our destination. And then ease of getting here. Part of being a drive market is the easiness to get in the car and drive those 6 or 7 hours and arrive at a beach destination that you can accomplish all of these things. So we do know that is a driver in why people visit. So what do their media behaviors look like? And we wanted to talk about this here so that as we got into some of our media selection and placements, we could see that we're really letting the consumer drive for us how we layer our plans and how we integrate the different types of media that we use. So the Space Coast visitor does do an above average amount of online research. I don't think that's a surprise to anybody in this room. They also seek recommendations from their trusted people in their circle of influence. That could be friends and family, but that could also be bloggers and travel writers that they follow online. They own multiple types of technology. They do still, though, utilize some traditional media. And so as they get more comfortable, they are increasingly consuming media in different ways. But not everybody in our market, for example, has just stopped with their cable. In some cases, instead, what they've done is add additional items to them. We had some interesting stats this year that have come up. Daily media time, so time spent with any media, is up to about 13 hours and 11 minutes a day. It's a lot. And 8 hours of that is on your phone. It's so much. But that is so many messages that we have an opportunity to receive. But as we're thinking about our marketing plan, it's also a lot of messages that we have to break through, right, and grab people's attention. No surprise, smartphone usage is on the rise. But also an interesting stat was that digital video, connected devices, digital audio, things that you can consume on demand when you want it, continues to achieve a meaningful share of time spent. And so something that, we're thinking about as we're placing our media. Yes?
Do you have any stats on the people moving away from cable? Do you have any stats on that?
So we haven't seen a written report as of late, but we did have a meeting with Comcast effective this morning, and they had some stats on at least their subscribers in some of our markets that we specifically advertise in. And what did she say it was?
Yeah, I don't remember the exact data point, but
It was still
the
about
idea of
60.
cord cutting, meaning moving away from cable and moving to just like streaming or apps or other sources, has slowed a little bit because what a lot of people did probably after COVID, after sitting at home for, all day long, they went to all these apps and they cut their cable, and then they realized, I still don't get, certain stations that I like, or I don't get some local programming that I like. So what they've seen is a little bit of a resurgence of people coming back and then just kind of layering in these apps. So it's kind of interesting. I don't know if cable is, headed in a direction where it's going to completely go away, but I think is going to probably happen. It's going to evolve a little bit, and they're going to have to give people more choices and more selection options. But I know, like my dad, he gets through his cable operator, he gets his Netflix. So those are the types of things that I think a lot of cable operators are going to try to bring to the table, is what other streaming services can they offer.
In this particular research, the stats here were that about 53% of those surveyed were watching linear versus 46 that were streaming. So, in that case, it's about 50-50. So
That's a huge increase,
yes, yes, agreed. So this one's hard to look at on the screen, but in your binder should be a little bit easier to digest. And this is the vacation planning journey laid out for you as confusing as possible. So vacation planning is not straightforward. It's not a linear process that doesn't have multiple back and forths, right? So I did my best to show for you what is the journey that visitor that we just talked about goes through as they're planning their trip, and also where are all of the tools that I have to be able to reach them. So your top line is those overarching steps, right? And then second underneath that are the decisions, the actions that we're making along the way. And then in your grid there are all of the different ways that we can give a message to a potential visitor along the way. And I thought it was important to show this because sometimes we take a look at one particular piece of a marketing plan or a marketing effort, and we realize that serves maybe that one function, but if we're not also looking at what are the other steps that potential visitor is taking, if I'm not in that spot, I'm missing an opportunity to convert them by giving them the information they need at that time. We recently sat through some training, and one of the numbers they gave us was that a visitor could interact with a destination up to 33 different times as they're planning their trip. So, one ad, one social post is a long way from 33 touch points. And so we really want to take into consideration the whole visitor journey as we develop how do we spend our money, our resources, our time, and our efforts. All right, any questions on that before I actually talk about implementation? All right, so this section will have a closer breakdown of the actual campaigns and outreaches, some vendors, and then at the very end, we'll talk about the analytics associated with it, okay? So these are the 5 destination drivers, just all on one slide visually for you. Based on the research, these are, if you will, the pillars of our destination. And this is what we use as our guide when we're developing messaging. And when I say messaging, I mean all of those squares that we just saw. So not just our paid advertising, right? But the stories that we pitch to media, our social media, our videos, our email marketing. These are the things that we lean on to really tell the story of the Space Coast. And this is when we talk to them. So this is the visualization of our messaging calendar. we have a mixture of always-on brand awareness. These are things that how many times can we put our name in front of a person? I'm not maybe trying to convert them at that point as much as, sit there in the back of their mind so that when it's time for them to plan a vacation, they're like, oh yeah, I just saw something about the Space Coast. And then on top of that, we layer our seasonal and our specialty campaigns. So that's what this is showing here. Okay, so I've been saying that this is the most expensive slide in the deck. This is the overview of our major campaigns that are there to increase destination demand and influence those overnight stays. So that annual campaign that I just mentioned, those high-level brand awareness, this year, this is, we do this based on a percentage of the marketing budget allocated. So this year will be about $1.7 million. This goes towards our out-of-home, so things like billboards, our airport signage over in MCO. I'm hoping if any of you have flown through there recently, you've seen some really nice new water and beach-based imagery by the elevators and in your car rental locations. This is also to support our online search and paid social media efforts. Then from there, we take our seasonal campaigns and we layer on top of them some deeper, more rich, targeted, intended to convert advertising types. So we have fall, spring, and summer, and you can see the breakout there. They total up to just over $4.4 million. A couple of caveats to this is the estimated carry forward that will come in the April mid-year, when the mid-year budget comes in, will be added to the summer budget, so that 1.3 would then become 2.8. So that is currently not accounted for, other than it's just noted there in the italics. And then one of the new things that we did this last year was take the messaging that we were doing for those pre- and post-cruise stays out of the mixture of our leisure campaign, right? The consumer who's coming here to get on a cruise is different than the consumer who's coming here to stay for their beach vacation. And so we wanted to be able to really do a little bit more granular targeting and also a little bit closer of tracking of what was happening with those particular passengers. So we've created a subset of advertising and placements within those seasonal campaigns. And so that is reflected there as well. So this next slide then is an overview of how we reach them in the integrated advertising efforts. And again, by integrated, I mean when we're looking at that journey, we're in all different places. And so these are the different ways that we try to meet them in our paid advertising along their journey. And you'll see some of them, again, much higher level, more impression-based. Some of them very specific, very targeted, intended to drive leads, create conversions. But a great deal of this, as we've seen, is highly trackable. And so we're able to use that to make decisions as we are spending our money.
Just for clarity,
Yes.
Sherry, I'm sorry. So the seasonal campaigns, we're adding 1.5 million to that?
So the seasonal campaigns for the summer
Right.
will get 1.5 added to the 1.3
So we'll have 2.8 million.
for the summer.
Wow,
Yep, that's correct.
that's a lot. Thank you.
You're welcome. So an example, this is a list of just examples of vendors that we might consider to utilize as we place those buys. All right, any other questions on that section before we go into talking about co-ops and partnerships? All right, so again, like I said at the beginning, the reason that strategic co-ops and partnerships are really important for us is because it gives us an opportunity to amplify our core messages. One of the things that's really great about, for example, working directly with an airline who's providing new service into MLB is that they're often willing to come to us and say, let's do a $300,000 marketing campaign on that new route. We'll put in 150, you put in 150. And so we're getting that, $300,000 value at only $150,000 to us, and we're really helping to fill those seats and drive demand from those new direct service markets. And so a lot of what is in here will go towards, we anticipate, one, maybe two new domestic airlines that will be providing service into MLB this year.
I also think Allegiant is probably going to step up and add
Oh,
a
yeah,
couple
that's
of
right.
additional routes.
That's
so,
right.
Yeah.
I forgot about that, too.
Where would like Charlotte Airport be? Which vendor would that be, for example?
So,
Well, Charlotte's served by Americans, but we don't have any co-ops with them. Allegiant was serving Concord, but because of the airline pilot shortage this summer, they've shifted, and right now they're just doing Nashville and Pittsburgh. But I think what's going to come back is they're going to come back with probably 2 or 3 additional markets. But I don't know if they're going to go back to Concord. I'm not sure if that's going to ever come back.
We've got Allegiant there, Spirit, American, Frontier, all into Charlotte. I mean, there's unbelievable amount of flights coming into Orlando out of Charlotte.
Yeah, in Orlando.
They're all full, too. I mean, I travel there 2 or 3 times a month, and there's not a seat left.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. From Charlotte, just.
So this next slide is on the sports marketing line item that is in the marketing budget. So again, we know that the Space Coast offers a great deal of opportunity for sporting groups. So we have the sports grant program. About 2/3 of this budget supports that. So it's looking to, help those events come into the market and bring their audience and overnight stays with them. Additionally, this year, we've set about $100,000 to look at sports marketing opportunities where we might be able to promote and increase some awareness of the sports facilities and opportunities we have here, and increase some lead generation to those new coaches, event organizers, and such. All right, so international, again, we think a great opportunity for us this year, one that hasn't been as available to us in the last few years. A lot of our international strategy also builds off of the idea of co-ops and partnerships. TUI is a great example of that, working with them to develop marketing and visitor information to help their agents sell, adding Cocoa Beach and Melbourne Beach as one of those holiday stays, in addition to whatever else they might be doing in their time here. Again, you'll note the international representation in the UK to help us educate and really let the consumer know about that authentic Florida beach experience that exists here. Our public relations firm, Butin, does also have a new London-based publicist, and so we'll be able to start working with them for special interest pieces and pitching to the international media available to us as well.
I was also going to mention, hopefully within the next month or two, we'll hear confirmation of if maybe two carriers that'll be coming from Canada. So opening up that direct route from Canada again. Were around a few years ago, we had Porter. Porter flew with smaller airplanes. In order to make that route really successful, we really need carriers that have bigger wide bodies and can carry more passengers. And I think that's going to happen in a big way. Like I said, I'm pretty sure we'll have one, if not two, carriers with scheduled service. So, we'll want to do some partnering with them, co-oping. And if that does happen and we have, a multi-year contract to have these routes, then we'll probably want to have some representation up there to try to drive traffic to that. So some real opportunity, I think, to the north.
All right, before I move on to the next section, any questions there? Okay, so these next couple of slides, earned and owned media, for all intents and purposes, is our public relations, social media, and website efforts. So the first two slides are how we inspire, engage, educate, and inform our visitors. That's a really important part of the vacation planning process. And so the budget associated here helps us support that infrastructure. We maintain multiple social media sites. We have a very large website. We have a mobile app. All of those things require hosting and regular service and support. We work with content creators to help us really tell the story through a different lens, and continuing to work on creating really strong itinerary-based, easy to consume, easy to use content for our website and social media so that the visitor who's looking for something very specific and ready to go is available to them. And then the second slide is the continuation of that. This focuses a lot on our website. We did just complete a UX study on it, a user experience study. We've gotten some really great recommendations on things to do to really help guide the visitor through a more seamless conversion process. So we'll be working to implement those this year. Ongoing, it's great if we produce content, but if we don't optimize it correctly so that it can be found, that doesn't just happen. Those are things that take time and some skill. This also includes the support we get from our agency, design, production, landing page development, and then also includes things like our email newsletters. I had a note that I shared with the marketing committee that we've made a lot of strides this year in really getting into a little bit more personalized targeting with some of our email marketing. So in doing that for our consumer emails, we've created a much more personalized experience. So our open rate the last 5 to 6 months is about 43% open rate on our emails. The industry average for travel and tourism is about 20%. So, I think, and we've seen a lot of engagement, a lot of new email signups. So we're going to continue to really work on refining that, automating that, and as data privacy and all kinds of questions go away, an email address that you give to me becomes even more important. And so looking at how we can really maximize that.
How many do we have currently, roughly?
We have about 60,000 active users in our database. Part of our revamping was a really hard look at. It's great to have a lot of emails, but if they're not being opened, if they're ultimately contributing to my spam rate or my unsubscribe rate, which are negative indicators, they're not really as useful to me. So we went through a process of re-engaging and trying to capture as many of those actively as we could, and then ultimately saying these are not of value to us anymore, and looking instead at how do we increase the signups that are valuable to us.
One of the other things that Charity touched on is the agency's creative and production, and all of the agency support that they give us is in this. We've kind of been renegotiating with them. They're in their going into the third year of their 3-year contract. And when we started with them, it was COVID and our budget was much lower. We had been doing a combination of paid hours and from a media buying perspective, buying using a commission basis. Obviously, our media dollars have increased exponentially since, 3 years ago. So we're going to go to a fixed fee, flat fee basis with them for the remainder of the contract, and we're going to bring that along with this plan. We'll bring that to the board to look at that and basically extend them out through 2025 because we're happy with them. But, we want to make sure we protect our upside because our budgets are only going to grow from here, we believe. So we want to make sure that we've got a good basis for that. So going to a flat fee, I think, will ultimately save us some dollars in this area.
When do you think we can get that done, Peter?
Well, I will bring it to the board next month with the plan, with a contract, with a new contract. So yeah. And it would start October 1st. So we'll start with the new budget year.
Great.
Yep.
Good job.
So the next element that the marketing budget supports is our public relations outreach and also the film commission. So the reason we do public relations, right, is to help drive local, regional, national, international outreach and coverage. We work in partnership, so Megan Happel, our PR director, is in our office, and then we have an agency on record, Butin, and between the two of them, we work through, again, those messaging calendars we looked at earlier, those themes, and we really work on what are those pitches that we can create that we can give out to the media and really story tell in a rich, meaningful way about our destination. And this year to date, we've seen about 860 stories for a reach of just over 2.4 billion people. And if we were to buy that publicity, just for perspective, it's about $5.3 million in publicity value. So you can see the return on our time and efforts to really work the getting of story coverage really does pay off for us. And then we also have the film commission. So for those who may not know, if you are a local film, or if you are a filmmaker and you're coming into the local area and you want to film or do something in Brevard County, we oversee the permitting process for that. We do also help work with the municipalities who maybe don't have a procedure for that, and help those filmmakers make connections, get the required services that they might need. Often if you want to close down a road, I can't just approve that, but maybe you don't know who to call. So we serve that function as well on behalf of the county. And then, again, we've talked a little bit already about the travel industry relations. So the budget associated with reaching travel advisors and tour operators really goes to education. We are also seeing the increase of advisors who want to come into the market, see the destination, visit the hotel properties, go to the port. And so we have a person, you all know Tom, he's wonderful, who is responsible for doing that. And then also taking opportunities such as Visit Florida, Brand USA, and working to develop those agent trainings and utilizing those larger platforms to make sure that everybody who needs a question answered about how to sell this market to their client has it. All right, my last final slides. So, like we mentioned, kind of all throughout the presentation, we utilize many different forms of data. I wish I could say that we have one tool that answers all of our questions. That does not exist. So we utilize multiple different tools for different reasons. Many of you have heard already about MotionWorks, who is the new population intelligence tool, watching what you're doing with your cell phone, if you're coming into the market, where you're coming from. We can use that to look at things like event measurement, points of interest. But with that, they also can provide us PRISM cluster data. And if you don't know what PRISM is, it combines demographics, consumer behavior, and then geographic data together, and it assigns your household to one of 68 segments, basically. And then it says of that segment, these are sort of the behaviors that are common to that segment. And so we can use that as another tool to really look again at who is coming here, and how do I go find more of them. So it's a great addition to that tool. Also continuing to do surveys. There's a lot of questions that we continue to try to answer. And so, how do we answer that? We try to go out and ask those questions, get the data, and then analyze what it's telling us. And then we've also just, speaking of surveys, completed the requests for a tourism marketing research firm. That process is ongoing through purchasing, but whoever is selected will come on board to help administer and analyze some of these results. And then the second slide on performance metrics, we're looking at multiple different market indicators, so room night demand, RevPAR. We're also looking at the booking data we're receiving directly from some of the platforms we use, like Expedia, like Adara. We're looking at competitor and trend analysis when it's available using, third-party sources, and then also our own brand survey results and traveler sentiment information. Obviously, these will be things, again, going into '23 that we'll really want to look into as we start to see what's happening within the market. And then on the right side are a little bit more standard of your marketing KPIs. We attach this when we submit our budget. So a lot of this is things like impressions, click-through rates. These are benchmarks that we're looking to try to hit, and we do provide these as quarterly updates in the packets usually. So again, multiple different ways at looking at results, trend analysis, market factors, and then trying to move within our plan the best we can to maximize on that information we've received. And then for those of you who love math, this last slide should, with all of the others, add up to that 9.77, whatever, on the very first screen. So these are the miscellaneous items that are in the marketing budget. Peter already covered these, the travel expenses, the memberships, and then the tax collector allocation. And that is all I have. Hopefully not too bad.
What's that?
That's a shortened version?
That's the short
Good
version.
job. Good job. So much information.
So, Peter, I do believe you want to have the plan approved today, is that correct? Yes, sir. My understanding of...
I have a question for Jerry or for Peter. Everything that I'm seeing is regarding leisure travel, or sport, or international. What are you doing? What information have you gathered with regard to the meeting market and the attendees and the potential to bring meetings to our community?
That's Michelle. Is that Michelle?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Tom's shows that he attends are a combination of the two markets. And then, of course, he's working to generate leads through things like, Cvent and respond to meeting planners who have questions. So a lot of that falls into our industry efforts.
Yeah, and a lot of what he
So we don't
does.
have any.
Sorry, I was just going to say a lot of what he does is he works, we have the sales action team, which is made up of, all the hotels and attractions, sales departments, and a lot of times when he gets leads in, because as a destination marketing organization, we'll get the lead, we push that out to that team and they'll respond directly. So we're more of a conduit in that area. We're not chasing, I wouldn't say we're primarily chasing meetings at this point, but obviously it's on our radar as we look at the future, and we look at the space available in the destination. As that grows, we'll be able to add more resources to that. But he kind of does double duty as both the on the meetings and convention side as well as the travel industry side.
So we haven't done any research on meeting attendees wanting to come to our area at the destination. We're just, none of that's done. We're just supporting Cvent and maybe one state of Florida meeting planner event.
Yeah, I mean, we work a lot with Visit Florida as well on that. And most of our data would probably come more from them. We don't have primary research that we've done against that market, but it's something we could look at down the road. It's certainly, I think, going to be a bigger, as more hotels have meeting space, it'll be a growing segment. But right now we don't have any primary data. So we work with Visit Florida. We work with some of the other meeting planner organizations. So.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you very much. All right, we're looking at action item. We need a motion and a second on this, correct?
Yeah, my understanding is coming out of the committee, it's already been approved. Doesn't need a motion and a second. I think the motion is automatic, right?
So, yeah, it's
All right.
automatic, it was approved by the committee, so it's an automatic motion to.
I'd just like to say that this is, having been on the TDC for a number of years, this is one of the best marketing plans I've seen the staff come up with, the most insightful. So congratulations. I think you've done a great job.
Yes, all right, can we have a vote? All in favor of accepting the marketing presentation, indicate by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? Motion carries. Motion passes, I should say. Okay, next is capital facilities. Giles?
Sure. So we're in the process of reviewing, we were reviewing 3 applications, one for the zoo for $15 million over 10 years, Rockledge High School, $400,000, which was withdrawn, I believe, wasn't it, Peter?
Yes, sir.
Yep. And the Valiant Air Command requesting $750,000 for some buildings. We're going to be turning in our score sheets by August the 12th, and then we're going to have a meeting August 17th to review those. So we're in the process of viewing those 2 remaining applications.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much. All right, next is beach improvement. Julie?
Thank you very much. We had a really exciting and eventful grant process again this year. I had my A-team committee. They are geniuses. And so really, really proud of the work that we accomplished. There were a couple things that came out of committee first that I need attention for. If you look in your packet on page 73, several of the projects that were awarded grants last year have had delayed timelines, and coming out of the committee, they have granted the 4 extension requests. 3 of them are a lot has to do with labor and manpower and some things that occurred, but on schedule from that standpoint, but just not going to be completed by the end of the target date. And then the 4th one was because the oysters were not making babies yet. So they can't rush that process, I guess, now that I know how oysters make babies. And so they are asking for an extension to let nature do its thing. So if I could get a motion, this is coming out of committee as well, so I guess we just need a second to award them their extensions for the 2021-2022 grant process that are presented in front of you.
All right,
I would like to make that second for baby making.
Does that have anything to do with Sam the Super Clam? I'm just reading.
That's a very touchy subject, poor Sam.
All right, all those in favor of the extension, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
And then you want me to do the next one, Julie?
Yeah, is that okay? And then
Okay,
I'll
yeah,
do the
sure,
grants
absolutely.
last. Okay.
So, we did have some funds remaining. So out of the $1 million IRL grant from last year, we had some remaining funds that could get expended this year if we work with the Natural Resources Department. And so what they have done, which they pulled this together very efficiently, there's $97,675 left, and there, as many of you know, in the past we've done this with derelict vessel removal, trying to get these vessels that are, in the waterways, abandoned, causing, all kinds of microplastic and fuel issues and blocking the waterways. The Natural Resources Department has a department that focuses on that and gets them out of the water. It's a lengthy process to get that to happen because they have to track down the owners. They have to get state permits to pull these boats out of the water. Usually takes it anywhere from 8 to 12 months to get approval to get a boat out, but there are so many now that they could use this extra funds, and they have matching. So there's a letter on page 76 that Virginia from the Natural Resources Department provided. So to match our $97,675, there's two sources of funds, which, if you remember, the requirement for the match is 3/4 to 1, so it's 75 cents to every dollar. They've got more than enough. So the idea would be they'll first go to the Florida Fish and Wildlife and utilize those funds. And then if they need more funds, they can go to the Inland Navigation District, but they'll probably have enough just with the Fish and Wildlife. So again, a motion out of committee just needs a second and a vote, Madam Chair.
If I could just make one comment.
Peter?
Oh, the committee was very supportive of this as being one of the top priorities, not only for the environmental issues, but safety, the eyesore from tourism standpoint. They felt that it hit all of the measures needed as a top priority and a good use for these funds. So there was a lot of discussion about that out of committee and fully supporting this. So I just want to share that with you. Tom?
Question from Tom?
Yes, Tom?
Yeah, just a quick question. There's stipulations that have happened in Brevard County and whether or not they prioritize both in tourism areas.
I didn't hear the last part of that,
If the
sorry.
boats were being prioritized in tourism areas?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can request that. The challenge is there's a process to go through, so the timing, sometimes there's low-hanging fruit that they can get out, but we always talk to them about trying to get, like 520, 528, try to get those causeways first and then the others after. But a lot of it is just the timing of when they can get approval to pull the boats out. So, but we can certainly work with them on that.
And, oh yeah.
Giles?
Yeah, thank you. I went out with Matt Culver, actually, on one of these boats where they pulled it out of the river. We did a story on it, very interesting. But I think it's around $7,000 approximately
The size of the boat determines. It could
on
be up
average,
to like
yeah.
10, yeah. it could be-
7,000. So
yeah.
if you got 97,000, that's about 15 vessels. As you come into Cape Canaveral, Port Canaveral, and 528, there's 3 or 4 right there. That's just an eyesore.
Yep.
So I think that's what Tom's getting at.
Yeah, try to get those first if we can, but
Yeah.
again, a lot of it's dictated by the process, but yeah, absolutely.
And Matt did explain that there are some advantages for using synergies. If there's multiple boats in one proximity, that they can get them out at a less expensive cost. So that's how their prioritizing has been. But it was so disheartening for me to be driving over the Ugali Bridge. I think it was just last week, and I watched a catamaran just capsize, just like over a day. So now it's upside down right there again. There's another. So it's like when you see this process, there's a great need. So that's all I
All
have.
right, thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second?
I'll second it.
Second from Giles. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Okay. And then we're going to go through my grant process next. Sorry, I'm very busy. We're a very busy committee. If you look on page 75, we had, for the first time ever on the IRL grants process, we had more requests than available funds. So it's a milestone for the IRL grants, as new as they are. It made it very challenging for the committee. So listed before you is all of the grants that applied. The available funds were $939,000 that were available. And so what the committee had decided, based on the nature of these grants, and that their projects, there was different discussions about how to make that decision as to where do we cut it off or do we give them a percentage. And so the committee felt very strongly about fully funding all the first 9 projects and then partially funding project number 10, which means that the remaining projects that, if you'll see on there's a column right now called rank order. So if you take projects 11, 12, and 13 and 14 will not be funded. Projects 13 and 14 did not meet the minimum scoring requirement, so they were not eligible at the time of our committee meeting, and the other 2 projects will not be funded at this time. So because these projects, in the nature of them, they put the scope out, in order for them to get them completed, the committee felt it was very important that we fully fund them as according to their rank. And so,
So I'm sorry, which ones are not being funded?
okay, I'm sorry, if you look at the column, just 2 columns to the left of the green, the funding request TDC, it says rank order. So that's where these rank. So the number 1 top ranking one was Brevard County Oyster Restoration. And then they are in order now. So the project number was their original original thing. So if you just look at, it's the Cocoa Beach Pool Pavilion Kayak Launch that will not receive any funding. The Veterans Memorial Park Interactive Signage will not receive any funding this cycle. And then the bottom 2 were not even able to be considered because they didn't meet the minimum scoring.
Got it.
I need to recuse myself from this vote as well.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
obviously.
Yeah, it does. There is some discussion as to the Cocoa Beach Pool Pavilion Kayak Launch Facility might still get funded through the city, or it might get delayed and brought back, is to see how the city of Cocoa Beach works that out. Still a great project. It's hard to draw the line. A lot of great projects are going to be accomplished in this application process. So it's a good problem to have for the committee, but we felt very confident in the ranking and where each scored.
So the derelict vessel removal will be getting 49 plus 97?
Yes, that's for grant cycle 2022, 2023. So this other thing that we just approved would actually be money they've received this year. And they are also received another grant this year. But it's a minimum amount when you count how many boats that they can have. And that won't happen next year. There won't be any surplus because we've awarded it all if you approve it.
I think it'd be great to get some credit for the tourism office on these derelict, when we have these boats removed, I think the TDC should get some sort of credit for it, and it's coming from the bed tax story or.
Well, we have started discussing that too as a committee. I hope you don't mind, but we have Dr. Dwayne DeFries on my committee, which I call him the godfather of the lagoon. I don't think he likes that, but basically there's a big gap in all of this money that we are, putting towards these projects. What their other organizations are doing is, to the knowledge, you constantly hear people saying we're not doing anything for the grant, for the lagoon, and in fact, we are doing a tremendous amount for the lagoon. And so there is some talk about how we market that and get those stories more ingrained, and it is becoming more and more common tourism draw, is that people want to have this experience of environmental and even being parts of, planting mangrove trees, and so just more of that kind of thing. So the committee is discussing that, and we're looking at how we're going to better do that with getting this information out more, working together.
I'm just saying the public should be aware that the tourism tax does a lot for things like this, for our local.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Just look at the newspaper people. Okay, can I please get a?
All right, can we have a motion and a second to approve
need
the
the
grants?
second.
As submitted. Oh, I'm sorry, we already have that. Just a second. Second, Mr. Jarnes, thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. All right, thank you very much. That was very good, Julie. Thank you.
And we're going to have our last meeting of the year coming up in October, and we're looking forward to continuing to improve the process and get better each and every year. Thank you. Concludes my report.
All right. Sports Committee, Larry Jarnes.
Thank you. We are excited to have a new sports commissioner on board. Mr. Terry Parks just introduced himself to our committee. Really looking forward to working with him. We all received 5 applications for our scoring sheet for the 22-23 Cycle 2 of sports grants funding, and we have to have those back by August 5th for our August 9th meeting. And our last meeting went fantastic. When it was Erin's last meeting, it was sad to see her go, but we're looking forward to this one, and it should be a great process.
All right.
That's what I've got.
All right, thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Cultural, that's me. Okay, July 7th, we had our meeting, and it was a very easy meeting. It was a Zoom meeting, and we just, everyone on there was just, we made sure that we knew how to use the Wise Hive when we went through and looked at each of our grants. We're working on that now. I'm about halfway through, and I know that the rest of them are working very hard on them. Mr. Schillhammer will have to catch up since he's just new to this now. And our next meeting is August 11th. That's all I have to report on that. Yes. Okay, so before we go to the board reports, I thought we would move public comment up. Anyone from the public comment wish to speak? Mr. Tobiah.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to begin by thanking Chairwoman Zonka for not appointing me to this committee. I'd like to thank Commissioner Pritchett for serving on behalf of the board, and Keith for stupidly answering my phone and taking this. I'll be real quick. I'm not going to ask for anything other than a little bit time of discussion. As you guys probably know, the board went in a little bit different direction when it came with TDT dollars. I was on the opposite end of that, and I don't necessarily want to reverse that one way or another. I respect the decision not only of your board, but that of my board as well. But I think a tenet of, you start my time. I'm pretty sure a tenet of elected office is to be fair to everyone that comes up. So I have handed out a rough graph here that you guys are more than willing to take a look at. This basically offers the same grant to all of the various businesses, tourist-related businesses that collect the bed tax. I think we've changed it from the perspective wholeheartedly, and I think it's probably patently unfair to offer that to one business and not everyone else. So what this does is reevaluates the way the cents are spent and focuses that all onto promotion. Just to be very clear, beaches are not touched by one penny, neither is the Brevard Zoo. So you can see that on the graphs, the pie graphs to the right. This, as Driftwood won't see any of the funds probably till the 25-26 cycle. What this would allow for some balance forward of the capital expenditures, the cultural events, and the Tourist Information Center, cumulatively in the area of $9.5 million. As we just saw, those numbers are going to increase 9 to 10% over the next couple of years, which should make up for the obligated future expenses, which are the aquarium. Again, I didn't vote for this. However, I think that is something the direction the board went, and I certainly respect that, as well as the debt service for the Iberia Park AstroTurf. To be very clear, this would not be a 30-year grant. This was the exact same amendment that I offered Driftwood. It would be a one-year grant to each business that collects this TDT revenue. It would be reimbursable, and you guys would still play a very important role to make sure that all advertising expenditures were valid marketing expenses. Again, I think this is very important. There were some proprietors that got up there and said, well, if business A gets it, and I've been here for years and years, and I've employed people, and I'm not getting that same benefit, I didn't have an answer. And I think this provides an answer to those folks. I think it would also be unfair for me to bring this to the board without getting the input. And I'll tell you right now, if you guys decide that you would like to continue with the collective way that you do that, I will absolutely respect that, because you speak for the businesses out there, and I greatly appreciate that. However, if you decide you'd like to go in this in an individual manner, I think this is at least a good start for a vehicle to do that. I don't know. I'm not in this business. My only goal is to be able to look at these business owners in the face and say, we are going to offer the same opportunity to you as we offer to somebody else. Again, this is just a starting point. This takes care of our current obligations and provides some resources to help the businesses that have been here for quite some time. I don't know if it's a good idea. It's just an idea that'll get to fairness. And again, all I'm asking for is some time in the future for you guys to sit down, discuss this, make this better, or come back and say, this is a crazy idea. We'd like to continue going down the same route that we have, that we're currently going down. I think I got it under 4 seconds, but I'm here if you have any questions on any of this stuff.
Thank you very much. I do have a couple of questions. So if I'm reading this correctly, what we're doing is we're shifting money into promotion advertising to pay for the grant, and then we're taking capital facilities, the Tourist Information Center, and the cultural events down to zero. Is that essentially it?
Madam Chair?
Yes, please.
Yes. So Driftwood most likely will not see those resources for 3 years. We have obligations of the aquarium. You see that bottom in the left in the neighborhood of $10 million. Vieira Park AstroTurf, the debt service of about $3 million. So if we were to do that balance forward, or we were to bank, in my words, those three things, that would get us close to covering that $13 million obligation. Also, this is just a rough draft, but we see numbers are getting better. This looks at numbers staying stagnant. Obviously, the obligations will stay stagnant. Hopefully, the collections will increase.
Thank you.
Yes, Julie?
My understanding of the award that was given, the marketing grant to Driftwood, I use that air quotes, if that they would get back $1 million of the $2 million that they're generating, and they have to meet that minimum criteria, then they are currently generating $250,000 to $300,000. So really, it's $700,000 that would be giving back to them additionally. Am I wrong in that?
Madam Chair?
Yes, please.
Yeah. Thank you. You're looking at the delta between what's collected now at the International Palms and what they're saying with the West End.
Yeah.
And even their conservative numbers, and this is the one thing I wasn't arguing with, was their projections. And it looks like that delta is going to be in that $2+ million range to more than cover that initial cost of what's currently being collected now. So it would be half of that amount. So whether or not it meets their measures and they say it's only going to go up, whether it's half, whether it's $700,000 or whether it's $1 million, they would be entitled to half. And this is what this envisions right here, that the collectors would be entitled to half of what they collect.
So I'm just curious as to why we're taking money out of capital facilities and tourism information center and cultural events if it's money that they're generating. Yeah, is that the design of this? Is that we have to?
So the design of this is very simple. It's fairness.
Yeah.
And the door was just open wide.
Yeah,
And
I know.
I'm sure you're probably paying attention. I was probably didn't hold my cards very well on that one. We had some individuals that came up to the board and articulately said, we've been here years. We pay our taxes. We employ people. Why aren't we receiving the same benefit? I did not have an answer.
Mm-hmm.
We have a revenue source that's currently being used, and we have the ability to answer that question by providing them the same benefit.
I see, okay.
I don't know if that's the right direction. You're the advisory board on this. You guys have a much better knowledge of this. Maybe that individual was an outlier, and the rest of the hoteliers and people in the tourist industry say that's not a great idea. We'd rather go down. We're disappointed, as you guys said, with that arrangement, but we still don't want to open that door.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, I respect your opinion. I've tried to make it fair, and I'll move on to the next thing. This is just a vehicle to do that. Obviously, that's new money, but I don't think we should penalize the folks that have been here for a long time and are employing our citizens and paying their taxes. So yes, there would have to be cuts be made. Where do those cuts come from? Again, what you just mentioned, capital expenditures, cultural events, and the Tourist Information Center, because we have obligations. Those obligations, again, are the aquarium and the AstroTurf debt service.
Thank you.
Yep. Madam Chair?
Yes, Giles?
Yep, just my basic thoughts on it would be that we're spending so much in promotional advertising, and I hate to give up some funds going to capital facilities because they do benefit locals. You know, these are facilities that are built here locally out of the tourism tax. So my thought would be, I think doing away with the Tourist Information Center funding and the cultural events funding sort of makes sense. But I would rather take a bite out of the money we're spending in promotional advertising and rather than take away some of the money that goes to local facilities. Just my 2 cents.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Yeah, this, I respect whatever you guys say. This is just a way to get us to that 67%. If you come back and tell me that we've offered 50% to Driftwood, it would be fair to offer 30% to those other folks. You maintain 10%, 10% goes to capital. I will respect your opinion. I will be more than willing to bring it to the board. It gets us a heck of a lot closer to fairness than what we currently have. So again, this is just a rough draft. I'm not opposed to anything. I just don't want to bring anything to the board without getting you guys' approval.
Ms. Andrew, can I jump in? Did we advertise to where I'm allowed to comment, or do I need to just be quiet?
I don't know that we advertise it.
Okay, so,
Notice that I don't think you're supposed to.
okay, so I have to bring stuff up at the next meeting. I just want to say, though, I think it's fun coming up with new ideas. So I'm going to study it out, but I always enjoy your proposals.
And Bethany Prasad in my office did an
I
absolute
can tell
fabulous
she
job
did a
with
chart.
this.
I knew this was Bethany and not you,
Yes,
so, yeah.
absolutely. So again, this is just a jumping off block, and I'm not asking for anything other than you set aside a few minutes in the next couple meetings. Take your time to discuss this. Maybe massage these numbers to come up with something that is closer to fair. That's all.
I was just going to concur with the commissioners. I don't think the intent today is to open a conversation.
No.
It's to open a thought conversation, not to have an in-depth community. We're just seeing this for the first time. But to open the door for future considerations of plans like this that could address this potential inequity. And I just don't think the end of a meeting, obviously, is, I think that's not your intent for us to get into.
I'm just wondering, Mr. Winston, are you being so kind because I spared the zoo, or because you're my appointee?
No, I'm actually trying to read your intent,
I'm just
which
kidding.
is not.
I respect
not
your
just-
opinion. I respect your
Both,
opinion
my
either way. And I don't fear you. I fear my sister-in-law. So that's my idea with the zoo.
Can I just ask a procedural question? These funds, like Fund 1442, aren't these ordinances? Aren't they funded by the penny and the allocation by the ordinance as it's written? So you're proposing by going to something, this would be a change of the full ordinance?
Madam Chair?
Yes, please.
Yes,
I'm just-
absolutely. This would require I'm not speaking on behalf of
No.
the board. I am
No, no.
absolutely not. I have absolutely no idea where they would be on this. My goal was if this was something that you guys were interested in pursuing, once you massaged it, for me to bring it to the board to say, here's an opportunity we have for fairness. The Tourism Development Board has gotten together, said this is the best way to do it. This would require 4 votes. I don't even want to know whether it's 3 or 4 or 5 votes, whatever, when we have the opportunity to.
But it wouldn't have to go back to the voters as the change in ordinance. I'm just learning the procedure.
No, Madam Chair?
Yes, please.
Ordinance is the board.
Is the board, okay.
Yeah, to change it, though, it requires a supermajority. Don't ask me what a supermajority is, because I don't even want to go there at this juncture.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
I have just one
Yes,
question.
Mr. Jones.
This is a really interesting idea. It really is, and it's definitely something to digest. I think that, I certainly can't speak for everyone else on the TDC here, but myself, I found it pretty disheartening that, we are advisory committee and we're all pretty much in line with our thoughts on the Driftwood grant or refund of reimbursement of, bed tax. And, we vote on it and we're part of a lot of different stuff on the TDC on a much smaller level. And one of the largest things that ever came, in front of this board or this advisory council, we had very little or no influence in that decision at all. And it was a little disheartening, and I think that we opened the door big time for fairness. And I've personally gotten a ton of phone calls about people asking me how they come in front of the TDC board now and try to get different grants and money for all different things. So it'll really be interesting to see the influx of people for projects, and I'm all about, creating fairness, and if we are going to change the rules, it should be the same for everybody. So maybe this is an interesting way to do it. This is nothing more than a comment on my end, but it is something very interesting, and I appreciate you bringing it.
Madam Chair?
Yes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Welcome to my world. I lose each and every time I get up there. The point is you pick yourself up and fight again. And listen, you were on the short end of the stick, but our process is great. I'm very happy with the electors making the decision to stick each and every one of us up there. Every time I lose, I'm more happy with the system. So you have an opportunity here to just a suggestion to come back and I'll tell you right now, whatever the will of this board, the majority of this board is, if you decide to continue, I won't even bring it to my board, because you guys certainly know more than me, and I've done my best to provide some semblance of fairness. These are not strict numbers. I had a week to get, and with Mr. Kranis's help, this is the best I could do in that short period of time. So this is just the starting point.
I just have one additional question in the thought process of this. Where is the fairness end? Like, how much money it will be awarded till the people stop coming and developers stop asking for more money? You know what I mean? Like, the money runs out eventually. So I'm just kind of understanding the logic behind the reallocation of the ordinances to at what point in this proposal, how much money is that?
Madam Chair?
Yes, please.
Well, this would be 67, two-thirds, but of course, the administrative budget of the TDC is located in there. Remember, this is just half of what is collected.
Yeah.
So it's a heck of a lot easier to budget new money as opposed to budgeting old money. So this is budgeting old money here. Again, if you decide that is 40% that the individual businesses can collect, that's a heck of a lot more, or sorry, to keep or get granted back to them. That's a heck of a lot closer to 50 than what we're currently at. So that's a decision that you guys make, and I'll respect it either way. Whether it's 20%, whether it's 10%, whether you want to stagger that dependent on the size of the business. Just an opening discussion, and I'd love to hear it and not be part of it, but be that your conduit to, even though you have a wonderful representative up there, just being an additional conduit to the board.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other
I have
comments?
one more question. Is it too late to cash in for the speaker card, the $1 million? Can I still do that?
If only I had it.
Okay.
Sir. Thank you guys very much. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tobias. Thank you. Any other comments? Yes, Ms. King.
Comment. Larry took the words out of my mouth in the terms that I feel that the TDC was slapped in the face by the county commission, 3 of the county commissioners, because they didn't even listen to your proposal. And I just thought that was very unfair. And kudos to Commissioner Tobias, because he did his homework and he was trying to get at least one commissioner to help close that lid on this Pandora's box. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. King. Any other comment? Well, we're going to go now to board reports. Any other business? Ms. Pritchett.
Thank you, ma'am. I just want to mention that I appreciate this board and you guys doing a lot of the research. It's an advisory board to the county commission, and I thank you for the relationships that we have with you. It's wonderful. I've been on the board, so I haven't been able to pick up a phone and talk to you. I have to do this here because we're under sunshine, then I have to listen there. But I just want to make that comment, that you are appreciated by me and I'm sure by the other commissioners. And your work as an advisory board, it's wonderful. It helps us make decisions. And I want to thank you for that. It's not easy being an elected official, But I highly respect the commissioners and their decisions that they made. They don't make decisions based on personal income, but on what's best for the community. And we all appreciate each other's input when we get up there at that level. And I just want to say that to each and every one of you, you are appreciated for your work here. And I thank you that although we don't always come up with the same decisions you've brought to us, it definitely makes a difference on decisions we make moving forward. So I do appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pritchett. Mayor Medina.
So I'll just segue into saying I'm really blessed to be part of this advisory council, and to know each and every one of you and how hard you work towards the benefit of our community. I'll also take the opportunity to report that last month we, as council, Palm Bay Council, I should say, we selected Kimley Horn to design the future campground at the Palm Bay Regional Park. So as far as the timeline, don't have that yet, but we are moving forward. I know this was approved by the TDC Advisory Council years before I sat on this board and years before I was elected into office. But we're moving forward with the progress of that campground. And so that ends my reports, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Thank you very, very much. Ms. Julie Braga.
Thank you. I just wanted to share with the TDC that since the decision by the Board of County Commissions for the Driftwood project, my phone has not stopped ringing as to questions as to why and the disappointment in the decision in the community. Not just hoteliers, but as a whole has reached out to me and wanted more information as to how this happened. So I don't know if you guys experienced that as well, but I just wanted to share that with the TDC and a lot of encouragement for us to keep going forward. But shock and awe was a lot of the words that I heard from leaders in the community reaching out to me. So I just wanted to share that with you all, and I do enjoy serving on this. It's really the wildest ride in the county. So thank you.
Thank you. Christy Galzerano. Are you still online, Christy?
Yes, I'm here. Hello.
Okay.
Similar to Julie, my phone is not stopped ringing from two sides, from people shock and awe, in addition to people asking how they're going to get the money as well, what they need to do. So it has been a wild ride. I've been on this a very short period of time on this committee, but it's as interesting as I thought it would be. So that's it. That's my only report.
Thank you. Tom Hermanson?
Yeah, I think I can echo Julie's comments. I'm not sure how much good it will do. I'm pretty sure I made my opinion clear on that proposal. And I was dismayed to see the county commission vote it forward, but again, we're the advisory board and they make a decision. Oh, no other comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Larry Jarnes.
I'm good. I don't have any further comments.
Giles Malone?
I'd just like us to, we're all in this thing together in Brevard County. Everyone's trying to do the best they can, running hotels, running restaurants, big challenges that we face. And it was sad to me to see the disparity between what the public wanted, what the tourism board wanted, and what the county commission ended up voting for. So it was a sad day. I think that it was a wrong decision, but I respect everyone's motivations, and I just hope that we can come together a little bit better and listen to our advisory boards, because I think that the folks on this board do have a great perspective. I mean, from north to south, all the way from Mims to Micco, we heard people against the idea. So it wasn't partisan for Cocoa Beach or Cape Canaveral. It was just everyone was against it. So I hope that we can do a better job in the future coming together with our system that we have.
Can I respond real quick?
Yes,
Mr. Malone, I appreciate that, sir, and I do appreciate that comment, too. I thought it was a fair comment. I do want to mention to y'all, depending on what side you landed on with this, is probably the phone calls you got. I had a lot of support of it. I've had a lot of people in the community that were very excited about the project. But again, it ended up being an extremely emotional thing, which kind of shocked me a bit that there was so much emotion with this. But again, if you had a different side of opinion, completely respect it. You should have those opinions. But again, this advisory board is appreciated, but the advisory board is for the county commission, and it ends up having to be something we have to figure out. And I appreciate you having different opinions. It's all good. But I was a little shocked at all the emotion that came with it. But, you have to deal with that and work through that. But you are appreciated. Mr. Malone, I certainly do appreciate you, sir. And I do appreciate that comment because I know how passionate you were with it. So that's all I want to say with that.
All right, thank you. And I have no comment and no report, and that brings us to Peter Crane.
No report.
And you have no report. All right.
I had something fairly mundane
Did I
compared to
miss you,
this. So
Keith? I
you did.
missed
That's
you.
okay.
I'm sorry.
One comment, I don't know if the final details of the agreement with Weston's worked out. I haven't seen them. I think the board would appreciate seeing as you work out the details, because we did raise issues if it did happen with ownership and reporting, and I'm sure Peter has access, but I think just as a courtesy, we'd all love to see those.
Certainly. I can get Ms. Christie to send you out the documentation. I think there's still a couple little tiny things they're working through I think the board approved the concept, but we're still working to make sure every reimbursement has to be a legal reimbursement by the time we're done. So I know they got to work
And
that
something
out.
that might be helpful there, just in terms of it, is if you actually wait for our comments, in case it can be a short time, because we did raise a lot of issues of the details of those agreements. And
I think if you want to come to the county commission and mention some of that stuff, it would be good. Again, I can't talk to them outside, and it was kind of interesting when the conversation came up where the commissioners were and hearing the data and the information. But you brought some great stuff, Keith. I got to say, even at this meeting, when you brought some things up, it really triggered my thinking quite a bit. So I appreciate that. It helped me tremendously.
yeah, if we
when we're
can,
working
anything
through
we can
stuff.
do to look at those and make sure the agreement is the best possible for the community.
Yes, please show up at the county commission and get the documentation and call your commissioner.
If we can get that. we
It's
can have
harder for you to call me because I'm on the board.
I know, I
but
can't call
yeah,
you. So,
yeah, but thank
and then
you.
on a very mundane, I hate to raise it after this long meeting, but it's so mundane. But I am going to mention that, part of what the zoo does is we're always looking ahead in terms of our guest experience, but also looking at the whole county. And obviously, we no longer have an active art museum, but we've been successful basically staging art exhibits of different kinds at the zoo. We've done this rather last minute, looking ahead, but we are actually commissioning sort of a surfboard artwork at the art walk at the zoo, like the Cows on Parade, but it will be 20 to 25 painted surfboards by local artists that we'll be commissioning that will come up by the end of the year. I think it's just a great way to celebrate art in the community and our surfing culture and how that ties into the sort of wonderful Florida we live in. So I put that out for two reasons. We are looking for donated surfboards, if people are interested in that, as well as there are sponsorship opportunities. It's going to go live mid to late November, and another reason to visit the Space Coast. So, Charity, it's probably the first time you're hearing this. That's why we just decided to do it. And that really is because next year we will be building the permanent lion exhibit, which is funded with TDC funding. That won't be happening the rest of the year, so that'll help fill that gap. But if you know artists, we're going to actually have quite a nice stipend for artists or folks who want to do surfboards or your own celebrity surfboards if you'd like to donate them. We're looking forward to the project. Sounds sort of mundane after everything else we talked about today, but I promised our folks we would mention it, so.
And actually, just wanted you to know, they did bring that to the beach committee as well.
Good.
And I said, there's got to be at least 250 surfboards in garages in my neighborhood alone.
Exactly. They're all out there. Any celebrity surfboards you want, county commission surfboards, anything that makes sense, we'd love to turn it to a wonderful. I know. They're all gone, right? So anyway, wanted to bring that up.
All right. Any other comments? All right, thank you. The meeting is adjourned.
The opinions expressed by any member of the public during any period of public comment do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of the Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida, Space Coast Government Television, or the program sponsor, and are solely those of the presenter. The Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida, Space Coast Government Television, and the program sponsor hereby expressly disclaim any and all responsibility or liability for any defamatory or slanderous statements expressed by any member of the public during any such period.